Welcome to the Level 2 training module for Appendix C, Test and Repair, which explains the fundamentals of this section in greater detail. While the intention of this training module is to increase understanding of R2 requirements, it is not intended to be used as a standalone guide. For the official text of all R2 requirements, download the R2v3 standard from the SARI website. In addition to the mandatory R2 core requirements covered in Section 1 of the R2v3 standard, Section 2 of the standard details the R2 process requirements in Appendices A through E. The process requirements relate to specific R2 activities that often require specialized processes and expertise to undertake. Because not all R2 facilities engage or specialize in the same activities, the process requirements in the standard apply only to those facilities that undertake the activities covered under each appendix. Appendix C defines the requirements for all electronics test and repair activities, as well as the verification of the device condition and level of functionality. The requirements of Appendix C are an essential component for those R2 facilities that wish to conduct test and repair operations internally rather than outsourcing those activities to an outside vendor. The general principle of Appendix C is to recognize organizations with the competency and tools to test, repair, or refurbish electronic equipment in accordance with best practices, to produce functional equipment, and accurately communicate the level of functionality, cosmetic condition, and data sanitization status. Appendix C applies to all R2 facilities that test, repair, or refurbish electronic devices or components for reuse. Certification to this appendix is not required, however, for facilities whose operations are limited to visual inspections or other non-functional evaluations to determine the potential for reuse in accordance with their Core 6 sorting and categorization processes. Effective testing and repair operations require active oversight and quality management to ensure that high-quality, functional items are produced. To lay the framework for quality, R2 facilities that wish to be certified to Appendix C must also be certified to an approved quality management system, or QMS, by an accredited certification body. At this time, there are two methods of fulfilling this requirement: certification to the ISO 9001 Quality Management Standard, or certification to the RIOS standard, which combines management standards for quality, environmental, and health and safety operations. Appendix C consists of two main sections. First, the documentation of an R2 reuse plan, and second, the implementation of that plan. The documented R2 reuse plan defines the structure and controls for the R2 facility's test and repair activities. Appendix C outlines specific criteria that must be detailed in this plan: written instructions related to the test and repair activities, competency requirements for test and repair workers, product safety plans, test plans, quality assurance plans, and a product return policy. Let's discuss some of the R2 reuse plan's specific criteria. The reuse plan must include written instructions for each of the requirements in Appendix C and for all test and repair activities undertaken by the R2 facility. The plan must also clearly identify the competency requirements for all workers involved in the test, repair, or verification activities. This is to ensure that workers are qualified to perform the activities assigned to them. Another key aspect of reuse planning is developing product safety plans. Facilities must have procedures in place to investigate and verify that equipment and components are safe to reuse. This includes procedures to check for conditions affecting product safety, as well as defining the process for responding to manufacturer recalls. These product safety plans must be included in the R2 reuse plan. This plan must also include documented test plans for each type of equipment and component tested and repaired at the facility. The test plans should describe the equipment and components to be tested, and the functions to be tested for each type of equipment, the testing methods that will be used to check the identified functions, and identify the resources needed to carry out the test, for example, the testing devices and software required. The pass-fail criteria must also be defined in the test plans, along with the methods for documenting and storing the test results. Test plans should also include categorizing equipment according to the rec after documenting test results. These test plans can be spelled out in work instructions for each equipment type. A careful reading of the structure and categories in the rec will greatly assist an R2 facility in creating their test plans. The R2 reuse plan must also include quality assurance plans to assess effectiveness of the testing process. These plans detail the processes used to verify the accuracy of test methods and testing equipment. Verification processes can range from sampling and manual verification of tested products to audits of the testing activities to ensure processes are being followed. In addition, the facility must include verification of testing equipment to ensure it's properly configured and being maintained in accordance with preventive maintenance schedules and with software updates. Analysis of testing equipment failures and equipment downtime can also be methods to determine whether testing equipment is effective at providing consistent and accurate test results. Another aspect of the quality assurance plan is the establishment of measurements to monitor the quality of reusable equipment and components. This can include customer feedback based on poor quality, product returns, failure rates of repaired equipment, or quality of incoming products categorized by suppliers. All quality management systems have a section devoted to control of non-conforming product. The test plan in Appendix C defines what's considered a pass or fail for a specific function. The quality assurance plan defines how a failed device is managed. It's important that failed devices are identified and segregated to ensure they're not used. The quality assurance plan also requires verification of the REC categorization. This means the R2 facility must implement verification tools to periodically check the assignment of the REC categories. For example, sampling tested items in inventory to ensure that the test results match the assigned category. And finally, the quality assurance plan needs to define verification activities to ensure data has been sanitized in accordance with Appendix B. Planned quality checks and sampling a percentage of devices verify that data devices were sanitized. Verification activities should cover the scope of all data sanitization activities, both internally and externally. The final portion of the R2 reuse plan is the documentation of a product return policy and plan. The product return policy is intended to establish the rules and criteria for how customers return products. The policy should outline what items can be returned, for what reasons, and the time frame in which returns are accepted. The product return plan details the actions to ensure the product return policy's rules are followed when handling returns. Actions might include issuance of a return material authorization, segregation upon arrival back to the facility, or sending directly to a downstream vendor that has been authorized under Appendix A to perform specific tests or repairs, such as mobile phone screen replacement. All the actions in the product return plan should be appropriate to the final destination of the reused equipment and components. Once the R2 facility has clearly documented its R2 reuse plan, it must implement and maintain those processes. An important part of implementation is ensuring that equipment is tested and repaired in a timely manner. Appendix C also requires that facilities test, repair, and refurbish R2-controlled streams within 1 year of receipt. The only exception is for components that can be used to repair other equipment in the future. Those components need only be evaluated and inventoried for use in future repairs. Effective implementation of the R2 reuse plan is key to producing functional, high-quality equipment for reuse. Because data sanitization is a critical aspect of quality, Appendix C for test and repair goes hand in hand with Appendix B for data sanitization. R2 facilities must ensure that data on reusable or potentially reusable equipment and components is sanitized in accordance with Appendix B. Where data sanitization is performed internally, the facility will have records and other methods to distinguish sanitized devices from those still containing data. If the sanitization is performed by an outside vendor, the facility will require another method to identify and verify the sanitization status. Facilities must also ensure that employees performing the activities defined in the reuse plan have been properly trained and evaluated for competency prior to performing test or repair activities. R2 facilities must test, repair, clean, refurbish, and configure to determine the functional category in accordance to the REC. In addition to carrying out testing and repair activities, it is critical to ensure the product safety plans are carried out on an ongoing basis to ensure consistency in identifying product safety concerns. Facilities should be proactive in ensuring that unsafe items are not reintroduced into the market, but are safely segregated and managed. R2 facilities must keep records of test results for each function tested and for each device or batch that has been assigned a unique identifier. When the testing process identifies any non-functioning equipment or components, they must be properly identified and managed separately from functioning devices. The R2 facility has several options for managing non-functioning items. First, where possible, the facility can repair and retest the item. Or, the item can be harvested for reusable components for use in repairing other devices. And, where reuse of the device or components is not possible, the item must be evaluated in accordance with Core Requirement 6 for the next step in processing. Equipment or components that are successfully tested and determined to be functioning must be identified with the proper REC categories. This includes identifying and disclosing the functioning product category, data sanitization status, and providing the cosmetic category or other detailed description of the cosmetic condition. The R2 facility must also follow the process developed in their quality assurance plans to verify the assigned REC categories. And finally, after test and repair, the item will have a new and verified category. The R2 facility must then manage the equipment in accordance with Core Requirement 6 to continue processing. To summarize, Appendix C defines the requirements for test and repair activities and requires facilities to develop and implement an R2 reuse plan that will ensure the quality and functionality of reusable devices and components. For more information about the R2 v3 standard, visit the R2 knowledge base on the CERI website.